Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. 3 martinis coming up.
Really glad you are with us for the Wednesday edition of the 3 Martini Lunch, and we have 3 good martinis for you today. Sometimes finding one is quite the challenge. Today we have 3, and I think they're 3 bona fide good martinis. It's not just all horrible things happening to Democrats, although bad news for Democrats is our first good martini today. So we're certainly grateful for those as well. Thanks to Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air for flagging this, but Jake Sherman over at Punchbowl also breaking the news. Looks like the Senate Parliamentarian has once again made life more difficult for Chuck Schumer. Ed says the Senate's reconciliation process now can only be invoked once per fiscal session. The Senate's parliamentarian ruled last Friday in a decision only revealed this morning. In extraordinary circumstances, the Senate could use it twice, but at a heavy cost. He then goes to Jake Sherman's tweets that says, news on a new Senate parliamentarian ruling. When the Senate left town Friday, the parliamentarian quietly issued a new ruling that said majority can use reconciliation twice. Remember, they already did it for the so-called COVID relief, but they can't do it just to avoid the filibuster. To use reconciliation twice, there would have to be reasons beyond political expediency, like an economic downturn. The ruling also, according to Sherman, said Congress would have to start over, repass the budget in committees, and bring them to the floor. In the Senate, that would trigger another vote-a-rama, which is where there's an open amendment process, and this would be exceedingly time-consuming and potentially politically risky. And so, Jim, I remember the Democrats grousing about the parliamentarian ruling on adding a $15 minimum wage to the COVID relief bill, and now they're making Democrats work a lot harder and possibly waiting until the new fiscal year to get going on infrastructure and a lot of other things they'd love to pass with a simple majority. So amazing how this works.
Yeah, and I'm always struck by the option that the response is, this is an unelected official telling the Senate what they can do. Yeah, that's what the parliamentarian does and what the parliamentarian has always done. You need to have one separate figure who looks at the rules and says, this is what the rules say, this is how they can be interpreted, this is what is permitted under the rules, this is what is not. And it's, when she said no $15 an hour minimum wage, you can't fit that into a budget bill. That's not considered part of federal spending. There's the hue, the cry. Oh, my goodness, it's time for Democrats to replace the parliamentarian. And then she ruled in favor of Democrats, and all of a sudden those cries went away. All of a sudden she was fine. All of a sudden, she rules our way. She's perfectly fine with that. I'm a little bit surprised by this, and I'm pleasantly surprised by this. Reconciliation is not easy, but the thinking of Democrats was that they could do it for a couple of times. They wanted to, and in both that's going to be complicated. The American Jobs Plan, which is $2.3 trillion, and the American Families Plan, which is $1.8 trillion. So they may have to combine it into the American Noun Plan that would spend $4.1 billion, or the American Mad Libs Plan, if you prefer. I think this is this eliminates one more tight, closely contested fight that Senate Republicans are going to have later this year. I always kind of figured the parliamentarian would be okay with the infrastructure bill because it's mostly federal spending. And it's very easy to say, okay, federal spending, that's definitely a budget issue. That's not even something where you need to stretch it or twist it or squint to interpret a certain way. You're already hearing Ilhan Omar saying, it's time to get rid of the parliamentarian. Yeah, you stay over there in the House. You worry on your side. We'll let the senators decide on this one. This doesn't completely change the entire crux of the legislative agenda for the Biden administration, but it does complicate the matter. It means they only have one more bite at the apple this year. Theoretically, they could go at it in 2022, but the closer you get to Election Day, the more nervous particular Senate Democrats will get, particularly the Mark Kellys of the world. And Raphael Warnock is up for re-election 2022, and he's voting like he represents Vermont. So I don't know if he's going to be as confident about taking these votes as he was earlier in the year. We'll see how it goes, but it's one headache that Chuck Schumer was not expecting to deal with this early.
Exactly, and it'll probably renew calls for killing the filibuster. but they don't have the votes to do it. They don't even have 50 votes, obviously. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema saying that they really have no intention at this point of ever voting to scrap or even significantly reform the filibuster. And so Joe Biden decided to go after them. I believe this was just yesterday with the quote, "I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done?" This was in Tulsa yesterday. Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends. Well, Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air decided to actually look at the voting records. Jim, do you have any idea what percentage of the time so far in the Biden administration Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have voted with the Biden administration? 100% of the time.
I'm going to guess, Okay, good. I was going to guess 75%. That's even higher than I expected. It's always been the case that certain iconoclast or maverick or whatever label you want to use members, it's the high-profile votes that everybody remembers. And there's all kinds of other votes that are much less controversial and much more procedural, where you're going to vote with your party and that's going to drive up your score a bit. But I had not seen 100%. Now, I suppose you could point out that when Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin say, yeah, we're not going to vote for this, it doesn't come to the floor,
right.
And thus they don't end up actually physically voting against it. But it kind of is an indicator that, Biden really is complaining about something. And also, Ed made that point, you realize Joe Biden had campaigned, I'm going to heal the partisan divide. I'm going to get everyone to work together. And then there's a bipartisan opposition to him. And he's complaining that there's not enough people voting in lockstep loyalty to party.
That's right. Now, Biden is a guy, and you saw this on the campaign trail, you've pretty much seen it his whole career. Whenever Biden gets the least bit of pushback, doesn't matter who it's from, could be the media that's normally very much in agreement with him, could be a Republican, could be another Democrat who disagrees. The defenses fly up immediately, and the come on mans and everything else. He's very quick, very defensive, very impatient whenever he's challenged on much of anything. That's not the persona he likes to put out there, but it is his track record of 50 years. And but you're
Are you
right.
a junkie?
Are you a junkie? Exactly. Or the Ed O'Keefe. Why? Settle
Come
down,
on, man. You ain't black.
Yes.
Greg Columbus.
Well, that's true, actually. But yes, that's exactly right.
He got you on that one. I gave him that one.
No, that's exactly right. But you do make a good point about how Manchin and Sinema have managed to kill stuff without actually voting against it. Manchin, and of course, announced he was voting against Neera Tanden at OMB, for example, and so the Biden administration pulled it. So there are things that didn't happen in part because of that. But overall, the idea that they vote with Republicans the majority of the time is insane. And Biden, of course, will not get called out for that. That would have gotten 4 Pinocchios in a previous administration. But anyway, the news is good. The news is good about what the Parliamentarian has ruled here and what the Democrats will have to do if they want to move some of these big ticket items with a simple majority. But we have even more good news even before we get to our next Good Martini. And that's a brand new sponsor here with us today, Omaha Steaks. Look, grilling season is upon us. It's the summertime now. Father's Day is later this month. And I'll tell you, the first time I ever had Omaha Steaks is closely intertwined with fatherhood. When we were expecting our first daughter, which is more years ago than I can even believe now, we thought she was going to be born a certain day. We went into the hospital. Turned out she wasn't ready to come. And we got back to the house that same afternoon. There's a big box from a friend of Omaha Steaks on the porch, so which was good news in a number of ways. First of all, we got a couple extra days of sleep. And secondly, we had Omaha Steaks that probably would have sat on the porch for quite a while if we had stayed at the hospital for the next 2 or 3 days. But I should point out that things are well refrigerated and frozen inside the box, so it might not have even been a problem. But right now, Omaha Steaks has got you ready for summer. It's got you ready for Father's Day with a fantastic assortment of products.
I've loved Omaha Steaks even since that weekend that Peyton Manning called them 289 times. Omaha! Omaha! You go to omahasteaks.com, type martini in the search bar, and order your dad or any steak lover in your life the Get Out and Grill assortment. It includes 20 entrees that he is guaranteed to love, like ultra juicy burgers, plump chicken breasts, sides, desserts, and 4 10-ounce butcher's cut New York strips. Now, these strips are aged 30 days. And why is that important? Because age equals tenderness, as any older man will tell you. Plus, get 4 free New York strip burgers with your order. They are ultra lean and pack a bold, intense flavor.
They're fantastic. We just grilled them out this past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and we absolutely love them. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were over, and my mother-in-law literally said, I enjoyed every single bit of that, and we all agreed. It's a fantastic bit of meat. We had the New York strips, and I can't wait to get to the rest of it. Fantastic stuff. And look, Omaha Steaks isn't just steak. It's the best steak of your life, guaranteed. Visit omahasteaks.com, keyword martini, and order the Get Out and Grill assortment today. Send Dad more than just a gift. Send him an experience he'll love and can share with you. And don't forget, for a limited time, get 4 free New York strip burgers with your order. That's omahasteaks.com, keyword martini. All right, Jim. We love to point out things that are difficult for Democrats. We love to point out things that go wrong for Iran, especially when they involve kaboom. We talked about their nuclear facility at Natanz having all these mysterious explosions and major setbacks, and we kind of said, we're not saying it's Israel, but it's probably Israel. Now we have their largest naval ship, or at least one of them, catching fire and sinking in the Gulf of Oman. This is from the New York Post. One of Iran's largest warships caught fire and sank Wednesday in the Gulf of Oman during a training mission as a series of mysterious explosions, that always raises the antenna, have targeted commercial vessels in the sensitive region since 2019. The British-built Karg, I think is how you say that, which measured more than 650 feet long, erupted into flames Tuesday off the strategic port of Jask, according to Reuters. The ship was in domestic waters during a training mission, according to the Navy's head of public relations. No further details were given. The cause of the blaze was still not clear, although I've seen some reports just in the last several minutes, Jim, that Iran might even be publicly now accusing the Israelis of doing this. Don't know that that's true. There are some things pointed out in this New York Post story also that Iran has perhaps been linked to some mysterious sinkings in the region. So who knows what they might be trying to incite with this potentially. But either way, another setback for Iran, it looks like. What do you make of it?
You know, Greg, there's a Twitter account entitled The Mossad, the social media account. It's not verified. I'm not really sure how you'd go about verifying the Mossad Twitter account. But 7 hours ago, there was after the news had broken, CBS News tweeted, biggest ship in Iran's navy catches fire and sinks under unclear circumstances, semi-official Iranian news agencies say. The Mossad social media account said, quote, congratulations, Iran, on having a new biggest ship. Now, the subtext of that isn't quite, we did this, but it certainly seems like they're sending a signal. And a couple hours later, they tweeted a GIF of someone saying, why? Why is this happening to me? Why? And labeled it Iran every day. Now, again, we don't know that this was the Israelis, but come on, it's the Israelis.
They're really good at this. Whoever's doing this, of course, we have to couch that since we don't have official clarification. But the win streak here against major Iranian military
it could be any
targets.
Jewish state in the Middle East, Greg. It could be any democracy. I mean, theoretically, could it be us? Yeah. But with this administration, not likely. Could it be an Arab ally who's, frightened of Iran's rise in the region? I guess conceivable, but come on.
It's
the Israelis.
If it was an outside...
I'm turning to that guy I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. I'm not saying it's the Israelis, but it's the Israelis.
I mean, if it's an outside job, it's almost certainly the Israelis. It could just be their own incompetence in some way. I remember, a lot of folks thought we were responsible for Chernobyl, but just turns out the Russians were terrible at it. So who knows? But we'll take the win any way we can get it, and hopefully it's a setback for their military and any other of their nefarious schemes in the region. All right. Let's talk about figuring out ways to save money. That's always happy news, too. We are full of good news today. And now saving money can mean never having to go to the post office again. Why would you still go there, especially when you would still have to pay full price for postage? Because thanks to Stamps.com, you don't have to anymore. You can mail and ship anytime, anywhere, right from your computer. You can send letters, ship packages, and pay less, a lot less, with discounted rates from U.S. Postal Service, UPS, and more. Look, Stamps.com saves businesses thousands of hours and lots of money every year.
Stamps.com brings the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS right to your computer. It is a must-have for any business, whether you're a small office that's sending out invoices, or it's a side hustle Etsy shop that's shipping out orders, or just navigating this hybrid work life. Stamps.com can handle it all with ease. No wonder over 1 million businesses choose Stamps.com for their mailing and shipping. With Stamps.com, you get discounts up to 40% off of post office rates and up to 66% off of UPS shipping rates. Not to mention, Stamps.com is a fraction of the cost of those expensive postage meters. Stamps.com is a no-brainer, saving you time and money. It's no wonder nearly 1 million small businesses already use Stamps.com.
It's a fantastic product. It's super convenient, and you save a lot of money. And especially if you have a small business, that can really add up in a hurry and really improve your bottom line. Don't miss that opportunity since you can use it for both the Postal Service as well as UPS. Don't waste time. Don't go to the post office. Go to Stamps.com instead. There's no risk at all. And with our promo code 3Martini, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage, and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. No long-term commitments or contracts, and all those things come along with it. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in 3Martini, all one word. That's Stamps.com, promo code 3Martini. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. All right, Jim, the good news just keeps pouring in today. So let's talk about some of the latest statistics as it pertains to the COVID pandemic, which seems to be ebbing quite nicely here. This is also courtesy of Hot Air, but this time it's all a pundit. He says a nice bit of trend spotting by David Leonhardt of the New York Times, whose pronouncements on all things COVID seem to carry unusual weight with our federal science bureaucracy. Seems like the science, quote unquote, seems to follow whatever new thing he likes to suggest. But now that he's noticed that there's been no spike in cases since the CDC told vaccinated people to get back to normal, triggering widespread abandonment of mask mandates across the country, expect Rochelle Walensky to notice too. He says there's nothing new about cases continuing to fall after a mask mandate has been lifted, of course. I've written multiple posts about how Greg Abbott's rescission of Texas's mask mandate on March 10th was followed by many weeks of declining case counts. And so, Jim, he's looking at the CDC numbers. We've now got a number of days and even weeks of data here since the CDC finally relented on all this. And just as a lot of folks expected, there has not been this spike that some of the more intense people have feared.
Greg, David Leonhardt is not technically the director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. But he's getting kind of close. And I exaggerate. I'm joking when I say that, but it is weird that, David Leonhardt of the New York Times, who by no means is a right-winger or anything like that, looks at the CDC restrictions and talks to other epidemiologists and virologists and public health experts. And very often the tone of his coverage is, this seems excessive based on what we know. This seems like an overly cautious move that is restricting what people can do. It's not necessary. It's not supported by the latest research. The CDC should rethink this. And then usually a good 2 to 3 days later, the CDC comes out and says, hey, we rethought this. And obviously, if lots of other folks have been saying these sorts of things too, but they weren't David Leonhardt of the New York Times. So I jokingly say that's Commissioner Leonhardt to you, but no, I'm glad he does this, and I'm glad the CDC listens to somebody. I do wish the CDC would listen to maybe more outside voices. Maybe they would just hand wave and dismiss the folks. The Fourth Estate obviously is a very powerful and influential institution, but maybe it shouldn't necessarily be, where the executive branch of government goes to figure out what they should be doing, particularly an independent agency like the CDC. But the overall broader point also is that, we've gotten rid of a lot of mask mandates in a lot of states, a lot of communities left and right. And for a long time now, we were kind of chuckling about how Biden had wildly overreacted to Texas announcing that it was getting rid of its statewide mask mandate. And there was no surge in cases. And Beto O'Rourke said it was going to be like the Black Plague and, all these other doomsaying. And Biden calls it Neanderthal thinking. And not Texas. It did fine. There wasn't any big surge in cases. It was considered. Now, there are a bunch of reasons for that. And as we look at the fact that there's been this delightful, first very steep and then I think a steady decline in daily new cases. As I look on the chart right now, as of yesterday, the 7-day moving average is 17,387. I mean, really, as recently as April, we were in the 71,000. And obviously the worst point was early in January. 7-day moving average was more than 236,000 people per day. I think Fauci had said that his sense of when the pandemic was over was below 10,000. Well, we're not there, but we're getting pretty close to it, and we're on a nice trajectory to it. So, and obviously, I hope everyone out there had a delightful Memorial Day weekend, I think at least for, my family and friends and for a whole bunch of folks, it really felt normal again. The people felt comfortable taking masks off. People didn't feel the need to stay 6 feet apart. People were shaking hands, hugging. It was back to normal life, and it looks like we very much are back to normal life. And now look, why is it not so bad? Well, vaccination's a very big part of that. Good weather, people are outside, more air circulation. There are a bunch of factors, but all in all, the mask doomsayers look like they probably should be eating some crow on this, probably have some humility on this. And who knows? I mean, it's kind of, I can't wait for David Leonhardt's next column to see what the CDC is going to do next.
Well, better them listening to him than the American Federation of Teachers, which happened way too much over the past few months. Just from a journalistic insider perspective here, Jim, is this a matter of him actually influencing the CDC, or does the CDC maybe float something to him that this could be coming and he says, hey, this might be a good idea, and then 2 days later the CDC makes it public?
I was going to say, sorry, it's happened a little too many times for it to be coincidence. We just happened to rethink this policy 2 days after David Leonhardt wrote about it. But
just trying to decide if he's the instigator or he's the facilitator here. But interesting nonetheless. And as long as, we're getting back to normal in a safe way, which we clearly are, we'll take the good news as it comes. So, man, it feels good to have that much good news. I'd like to say we're going to try and replicate that tomorrow, and we will, but odds of that are not good, so we're going to relish this for the next 24 hours. Jim, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please do subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. We're very grateful for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Thanks again for your patience with Apple Podcasts. We are making progress, and hopefully we'll have good news for you on that front very soon. Also, get us on those home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us on Twitter. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Wednesday, and please join us on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Hi, it's Dana Lash, host of The Dana Show. Every day, I'm here to keep you up to speed on the most important stories and info that you need to know in your very busy life. And if you're always on the go and you want to stay connected, just download our daily podcast and take it with you. It's a great way to get up to speed on what you need to know and what legacy media may not be telling you. Visit danaradio.com and click on the podcast link or subscribe at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.